It's time for a full Black Dwarf guide. Welcome back to Cocky Gachas, and in this video, I'm going to touch on a full Black Dwarf guide, share with you guys my guide on how to play Black Dwarf, first breaking down the kit, and also talk about some of her portrays, whether it's worth to go for high portrays. Also, we're going to take note of some Psycube recommendations, team recommendations, as well as some optimal tips when you play Black Dwarf to maximize her DPS. So first up, Black Dwarf is a 6-star mineral mental damage user and she focuses on single target burst damage. And before we go any further to touch on her skills, just like to introduce her planet system. So the planet system is unique to Black Dwarf and she has at P0 3 planet slots, and obviously these planet slots are used to slot in the planets so that she can gain various buffs that I'm going to touch on later when we go through the skills. So this is what you need to take note of. This is unique to Black Dwarf. At P1 she's going to gain another slot, so she can have up to 4 planets on her at all times, so she can gain the buffs while casting the spells. Now we go on to the first skill, and that is Enchanted Strike. This is a 1 target attack and it deals mental damage. After casting this Enchanted Strike, she is going to gain Saturn, so this is one of the planets that we talked about, and Saturn grants her penetration rate 6% each. So with up to 3 planets, she can gain 18%. If at P1, she can gain 24%. So that is the max amount that she can gain while having this Saturn on her. And as Black Dwarf is highly focused on DPS, having Saturn is going to be the best for her overall, as it provides penetration rate, which is a very rare stat compared to other of those Incantation Might, Ultimate Might, or Damage Increase. These are more common stats, hence is going to suffer more diminishing returns, so penetration rate is much more valuable. Now moving on to her second skill, this is an AoE mass attack skill that attacks 2 enemies with mental damage. After casting it, she would instead gain Mars, and for Mars it provides leech rate. Similarly, 6% leech rate, and at max, if you were to stack out 3 Mars, you can gain 18% leech rate. Of course, like I mentioned just now, right, if you're focused on DPS, your main focus is going to be stacking Saturns instead of stacking Mars, because the benefits are one for survivability and the other for DPS. So depending on what you need, you're going to swap it accordingly. Now lastly, we're going to talk about her ultimate, which is a 1 target attack that deals 600% mental damage, called Ultimate Perfection. So what is special about this is that it interacts with the planet system in the fact that she's going to remove all planets once you cast the ultimate and instead replaces them with 2 full moons, similar to Saturn as well as Mars. Full moons give buffs, and in this case it is Incantation Might, so you would instantly gain 12% Incantation Might for your next attack once you cast the ultimate. Now for her Insight one, this is a very important insight because it provides her with additional buffs when she removes her planet. So like I mentioned, when you remove planets from your ultimate, right, you are not going to gain anything. Instead, you're going to lose all the benefits. With this Insight one, instead you're going to have some of the benefits coming in, and that is with the fact that you are going to now gain double the buffs of what the planet actually provides. So for instance, if you were to have 1 Saturn being removed, instead of losing straight up 6% penetration rate, you are going to gain a 12% penetration rate stackable icon buff that you're going to have. You can think of it as rousing morale. So it is going to be used for your next attack. Once your attack is up, it's going to use up the stack. So this is where it comes in, whereby there is a temporary buff when it comes to removing planets. So similarly, if you remove Mars, it is going to give you double the leech rate, 12%, and if you remove full moons, it's going to give you 12% Incantation Might. So this is going to be very useful. For her Insight 2, this is straight up a critical rate plus 10% when she enters the battle. Now moving on to her Insight 3, this is an insight that interacts with her ultimate. So when you cast your ultimate, it is going to gain 1 effect based on the largest amount of planets being removed, meaning it's either Saturn related, Mars related, or full moon related. However, if they are all equal number, meaning 1, 1, and 1, there is a priority that it follows, meaning from full moon to Saturn to Mars. So if Mars and Saturn is the same amount, it would take precedence for the Saturn effect instead of the Mars effect. And similarly, if Saturn and full moon is on equal amount, when you cast your ultimate, it is going to cast the effect relating to full moon. So the various effects are as such. For Saturn, it is going to cast an Enchanted Strike, meaning the single target attack follow up, depending on how many Saturns you have on you. If you have 3 Saturns, it's going to cast a rank 3, level 3, 3-star cut. And if you have 2 Saturns when you cast your ultimate and you remove those, it's going to cast a rank 2. So ideally you want to cast your ultimate when you have 3 of these planets on you. However, from a efficiency standpoint, even casting a rank 2 is going to be worth it. You don't have to purposely go for overflowing your Muxi just so that you can have a rank 3 follow-up. It's not going to be worth it. For the Mars itself, instead it is going to cast a follow-up attack for the mythical meteors, and this is an AoE. And lastly, for moons, if you have the most amount of full moons when you cast the ultimate, you are going to gain Empower Incantation. And Empower Incantation 2 basically just means that 2 random cards of the user is going to be upgraded to the next rank at the start of the next turn. So this is the effect for all of her insight. Now moving on to her portrays, I'm going to say first that her portrays are not the most impactful as much as it seems like it is extremely impactful. So the first one is going to be at Portrait 1, up to 4 planets can be carried. For Portrait 2, it basically changes ultimate to gain 3 full moons instead. And of course, if you have 3 full moons when being removed when you cast your ultimate, right, instead of having the max limit being 2 rounds, it's going to be going up to 3 rounds. So not a big change as well. For the Portrait 3, it's going to be a straight up increase of the Saturn buffs from 6% to 9%, as well as the multipliers for the Enchanted Strike. For Portrait 4, it now deals with Mythical Meteors, which is the AoE skill, and similarly from 6% to 9% leech rate, as well as upgrading the mental damage for the multipliers of the skill itself. Now lastly, for her P5, it has to deal with her ultimate, and what it does is that instead of having 3 full moons that you gain on Portrait 2, it's now going to be 4 full moons, and also the full moons effect is going to be increased from 6% to 9% Incantation Might. So also on the screen, you should be able to see this is Feng Yan's calcs on the DPM increases for the various portrays, and I would have to say that this is one of the worst portrays when you look at the DPM increase just from this perspective. But also have to consider the fact that Black Dwarf by herself is already strong, so having a low percentage of a higher number is still very good. But in general, don't really recommend going for the portrait upgrades, since you can see, especially the one that people always talk about is P1, it does not give you that much gain at all because it is just deceptively good, right? The extra slot doesn't really do too much for the user. Next, for Black Dwarf's Psycubes recommendation, there is one key one, which is Luxurious Leisure. As with all the single target users, right, as long as you have Luxurious Leisure, you want to put it on them. And similarly to Black Dwarf, you also want to do so. However, I do understand that a lot of people have joined the game after this 1.1 event Psycube has already long gone. Hence, you might want to look for alternatives, and here are a couple alternatives that I would give you guys. And first, we have Yearning Desire. This is a 5-star Psycubes and at max amplification, which takes you around 44 days to get from your start of the game. It is going to be extremely good as the second option when it comes to DPM charts right after Luxurious Leisure. However, it does suffer a bit more from a survivability front, but I do not think that it is of concern. As long as you have a healer, it shouldn't be a problem. So this is going to be the first one, Yearning Desire, 5-star Psycube. Next one is going to be your Bounded Duty. So Bounded Duty is a extremely flexible Psycube, just that the amplification is not good at all. So if you are trying to use Bounded Duty, it is mainly just for the damage bonus as well as the high attack that it boasts. So this too also puts it very close to Yearning Desire as a second option when it comes to a replacement for Luxurious Leisure. And lastly, if you have Hopscotch, you can also use Hopscotch for Black Dwarf. However, it depends on the stage itself. If you are not able to get the stacks up, it will really pale in comparison to the Bounded Duty, but at max stacks, you are able to outperform both Bounded Duty as well as Yearning Desire. So depending on the stage, it can be a great option. So these are the 3 replacement Psycubes if you do not have Luxurious Leisure, but Luxurious Leisure is definitely the best one for Black Dwarf. Now for Black Dwarf's Resonance loadout, you can see on the screen itself, I have attached one of the recommended loadouts by Feng Yan, which is a CN Calcer, and this is by maximizing DPS. So if you want to have a tankier Black Dwarf, you can tweak it to your own needs to include more survivability, more sustainability. However, I strongly recommend to go with this since Black Dwarf main usage is in maximizing DPS, so I would put less focus on survivability, instead relying more on the healer to sustain her. So this is going to be the optimal one when it comes to DPS. Now of course all that we have talked about is just about Black Dwarf herself, but when she functions in a team, who are the best teammates for her? So when it comes to team building with Black Dwarf in mind, we want to go with AP generous units. Now if you're unfamiliar with the term AP generous as well as AP greedy, basically just means how well a unit is able to function without them using their cuts. So for instance, an AP generous unit would be someone like Ananli, whereby the passive empower incantation can help the team function without her using her cuts, as well as also units such as Pickles, whereby by them not moving, they're able to gain various effects to boost their Muxi gain faster. So in a way, those units are more AP generous. For a carry like Black Dwarf without Muxi generation, she requires more AP generous teammates because she is more AP greedy. So I would just say a couple good teammates are Pickles, which is also mineral type. You can also look at Teferi. Teferi is also rather AP generous, and as well as Anli. So these are all good teammates, and in the future there will be 6, which is an extremely AP generous buffer. So definitely all of these units are good to pair up with Black Dwarf. And additionally, I also like to mention that Black Dwarf really wants to be AP greedy because her ultimate is much stronger than it seems. Instead of just a 600% multiplier, it also comes with a fallout attack depending on what planets that she removes. Hence, being the ultimate so strong, right? We really want to prioritize Muxi gain on her so that she's able to cycle her ultimate much faster. So this is also a reason why you want to use her with AP generous teammates. Now lastly, for the optimized strategy to play Black Dwarf for the maximum DPM, you are going to want to merge cuts as opposed to just using cuts by themselves. So for a normal character, it might be beneficial to just use the normal cuts by themselves. However, Black Dwarf, like I mentioned, her ultimate is very impactful given the fact that the 600% mental damage multiplier also comes with added follow-up attacks if you were to focus on Saturn as well as Mars. Since that is the case, you always want to prioritize merging cuts. But this is on the premise that you do not lick Muxi. So the optimal way to actually merge cuts is when you have 2 or less Muxi. This is when you can merge cuts, because by moving the cuts and merging the cuts, you're gaining 3 Muxi. So anything more than that, if you have 3 Muxi, you are potentially losing Muxi and it is not optimal anymore for you to merge cuts. So just following this priority, you can see on the screen for yourself that regardless of which cut you move, it's going to always be better than you not merging cuts, right? So this is going to be the optimal strategy. However, when it comes to facing a single target, of course you want to merge the Enchanted Strike over Mystical Meteors, and notably if you are facing 3 targets, then you also want to focus on merging the Enchanted Strike. The only situation whereby merging Mythical Meteors is going to be good is where it is only 2 targets. So this is just the strategy when it comes to optimizing DPS. Of course, you can also go with the usual strategy of throwing whatever you want. You can see the DPM, although there is an increase, it is not exactly like 20% increase, right? So it's less than 10%, almost 10%, significant, but also not the biggest deal if you don't play optimally. Now additionally, when it comes to using her ultimate, you also want to prioritize having a higher rank follow-up attack. This goes without saying, but if it comes at a cost of you licking Muxi or having to move empty cuts, then that is not going to be worth it. So try to get rank 3 if you can. If you happen to have an extra 1-star cut laying around and you are able to make it 3 Saturns, go for it. Otherwise, do not force it. Rank 2 is also fine for a follow-up attack. Now of course, at this point, if you still haven't put our Kaalaa Baunaa, our Black Dwarf, and you are thinking whether you should pull, definitely check out this video over here. I'll see you guys over there. This is Corky Gachas, signing off.